Hello, community. My name is Catherine Jura. I am a community health educator, and I am your host for this podcast. I created Hello Community in response to the current epidemic of social isolation and loneliness that is being reported across the world and the United States. 1 out of every 2 Americans says they are lonely. And prolonged loneliness can lead to physical and emotional illness. It can make chronic illnesses worse, and it can lead to early death. But the good news is that social connection and community are significant healing factors for this epidemic. So my guests will be sharing their stories of how they created social connection and community for themselves. So let me introduce you to our guests today. As you've been watching and listening, you know I generally have 1 guest, and today I have 4, the Peters family. This is really exciting. I always begin with how we met. So Sue's family and my family grew up next to each other, and I have a son that's about Sue's age. And we knew each other about 10 years, many years ago. And then we met at a social event about a year ago. And then I started following you on Facebook. And there were all these posts about Scouts. And it all looked so much fun and community. And so I reached out to Sue and said, tell me about what it is about for you folks. And so what I learned is, and this is very exciting, is that for the boys, Justin and his brother Jared were in the Scouts. So for the boys, you are a 2nd generation in your dad's family line of Scouts. And then Sue's mom and Sue, and now you boys are the 3rd generation of Scouts in your mom's line, which is just, so I thought to myself, what's going on here with the Scouts? Why is this so cool? Why do you boys want to be doing this? And why did your mom and your mom's mom want to do this? So why don't we start with, what do you love about being in the Scouts? Why don't we start with you, Sue?
Well, for me, I've been in Scouts when I was a small child. I did brownies and juniors and cadets and seniors. I did it for many years. I quit for a few years in between and came back. It connected me with a group of other girls who I probably wouldn't have connected with otherwise. So I was with this group of people, and we could be ourselves together. There were no, cool kids and not cool kids. We were all just ourselves in a small group. And so I think that was a good way to bond with people that I normally wouldn't have bonded with. I learned really neat skills that I still use. I learned a lot of outdoor stuff. So just learning these skills in my family, when I got to be an adult and have my own family, I wanted to instill these skills in my kids. I wanted them to love nature. I wanted them to love community and people that they normally wouldn't bond with. And it's good character building as well. So
interesting. Before we move on, what was it for you as a young person that when you just shared that it felt very safe to be ourselves? Do you know why that community helped you feel that way?
Well, I think, when you have a smaller group of girls, it's easier to get to the space of being goofy around each other. There's that age when you're like 12, 13-ish, and you're all of a sudden, you really care about what you look like, how you behave. He's on the cusp of that right now as a boy, but, for girls, for me, just being around other girls and not having to worry about what people thought when they looked at me, and it wasn't about that. It was about just doing these activities together. We had a lot of sleepovers. It was nice to be able to just be a goofy kid still. When you go to school and you're that age, you have to be, perfect. You have to try to be perfect in your own mind. So I'm really glad that I had that for myself at that time.
So something about the small group, but was there also sort of an unexpressed something in the culture of the group or the leaders in the group that said, you can be yourself here?
I think so.
Yeah.
We had great leaders who really just nurtured all of us. Whereas in school, I think sometimes maybe certain kids get more attention. I was quiet. I was not a problem in class. I tried to just keep my head down, do my work, not raise my hand much. But when I was at Scouts, I could talk freely.
Interesting.
You know, the leaders wouldn't just pick like one or two people that they let. It was like all of us. You know, we would take turns, and it was more collaborative, I think, with our leadership. So.
Wow, that's really great. Mm-hmm. So Sam, would you like to say a word or two about why you like the Scouts?
Yeah. Why I like it is because we get to go on adventures with our community.
Oh.
And we also get to camp, we get to play games, we get to learn new skills, and learn to work with friends as a team.
And you like that? Yeah.
Yes.
And can you relate to your mom's story? Like, do you feel like you can just be yourself in your troop?
Yeah.
That must feel really good. Yeah. Okay, would your dad like to share a little bit about why are you doing this for the second generation?
Yeah, it's actually very odd to be, you know, an adult doing it now, because I had such a good time, you know, during my scouting experience as a child, young adult. I started a little late, so we had my brother and I had a little bit of catching up to do, because, you know, you have your ranks, your requirements, you know, to try to build towards your eagle. You know, it's building on your past accomplishments to try to get to that end goal. But to piggyback on what Sue said, it was a safe space from, you know, maybe some of those social pressures at school, that kind of thing, to be able to meet these group of, you know, a wide range of kids, you know, age-wise, to all be doing, you know, common things, and having a good time, where, again, you wouldn't normally be hanging out with all these kids from, you know, different backgrounds, different, you know, different ages, you know, social circles, but everybody was, you know, they're accomplishing the same thing, same goals, you know. So those certain kids that maybe you wouldn't necessarily hang out with at school because of, you know, age or social, you know, circles. It was a very good community that you go to, and you look forward to it. I mean, I always look forward to it every week. And there was a lot of, you know, discipline as far as, you know, you had your requirements, your, you know, things that you had to do, but everybody was a collaborative effort to come together, and for not so much for the Cub Scouts, because it's a lot of parent-led stuff, but for the Scouts BSA, the young adult stuff, that was more scout-led. So we all had a part in making it a good experience for everybody.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So would you agree with Sue that there was something about the created environment of your troop that created safety to be whoever you were?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And then what I think you said was there was a thing, something you were working on, that it didn't matter who you were, where you came from. You didn't say this, but I assume what color skin you were, no matter what all the things that can make us different, the activity made you all the same.
Yeah.
The activity brought you together, and nobody looked at each other as what they look like on the outside. You were working on what's going on in the inside to make this activity.
Right. And again, it was a community effort, as far as, you know, I'm working on my own requirements, my own goals, but everybody else is working on their own requirements, with them. I may have already done that, and I can help them out with that, because I've been through that. You know, this is how I did it. You know, what are your ideas on how you want to accomplish those goals?
As a leader, or back when you were a young one?
Back when I was a young one, because because you're varying ages, varying ranks. Like, everybody went through those same requirements, same badges. You know, you've already seen that. So, like, hey, you know, this is how we accomplished this, what's your idea? Maybe we can, you can piggyback on what I did, or you have your own new ideas, that kind of thing.
So you might be working on different badges, but the commonality was working on badges.
Right.
And then you might be working on different ones, but then you could come over and say, hey, I worked on that, can I help you with that maybe?
Yeah, absolutely.
Ah.
And those different ages, you were able to reach out either above or below your age range to, get ideas and, really work together. And it was a really good experience.
So Lucas, would you like to share with us what you love about being in the Scouts?
At first, I was quiet and I didn't know a ton of people because they all went to a different school than me. But then, as the years went on, I got to know them better, and I could hang out with them and be goofy around them. And I speak out loud more, and I do more stuff with them. And I go on new adventures, activities, and I can just hang out with them, and I got to know them more.
And that feels good, sounds like. Yeah. Well, that was all really interesting. So why don't we talk a little bit for our listeners and our viewers how the Scouts are different now? Because we heard, most people have heard Boy Scouts can now have girls, and then there's Girl Scouts, and then when I checked in with you about some of the activities I was seeing on Facebook, you said you wrote back and said, oh, we're in Cub Scouts. And I'm like, well, what are Cub Scouts? So why don't we talk about Cub Scouts and then how Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts are different or the same now?
Okay, so Cub Scouts is elementary school age kids. So it can start in kindergarten and go all the way through 5th grade.
And everyone's mixed together?
All genders.
All
Yep,
genders and all sexes?
For Cub Scouts, yep.
Okay.
So it goes lions, you guys help me with this. Lions, tigers, wolves, bears, Weeblos, arrow of light. Perfect.
And these are all Cub Scouts?
That's the Cub Scout ranking.
Okay, Cub Scout ranking. Okay.
And then you go to scouting. So right now Sammy is a
bear.
You're a bear.
And
Scout.
Lucas is
I'm an arrow of light.
arrow of light. He's at the top. right now.
Arrow of light.
Yep.
Scout. Okay, at the top. Getting ready to go into Boy Scouts then? Okay, so then, Boy Scouts.
I'll let Justin talk about that.
Okay. Yeah, so Scouts BSA is what it's now called. Traditionally, it was the Boy Scouts of America. A little rebranding now. It's Scouts BSA. So they do have both genders in the troops nowadays. But back when I was younger, it was Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts separately.
Yes.
I mean, she talked about it earlier about. How it was kind of nice being able to be kind of yourself, and in that age range, it was a lot easier to be yourself around, all the other boys or the other girls,
Yes.
especially around that age when,
Yes.
you start having that dynamic between boys and girls. So that was something that I, and I think Sue agrees with me, kind of enjoyed, having that kind of separate time, where you didn't have to worry about those social interactions or,
Interesting.
Are
many girls coming into the Boy Scouts?
I don't have numbers, but
Yeah.
I've definitely seen. When we go to Rotary Camp, there are different gendered teenagers that help, like their CITs at Cub Scout Camp, like counselors in training or their assistants, definitely multi-genders. And who knows what it's like for them now. I know I felt comfortable in a group of girls, but scouting has changed, and so now it's all integrated. I think there's still Girl Scouts, but scouting BSA can be everything now. From what I saw at camp, though, it was great. They were getting along really well. It's a certain kid that stays in scouting into the teenage years. So, so I didn't sense a lot of, like putting on airs for each other or anything like that. It was just a group of really cool teenagers that I saw over the summer at their scouting camp.
So does that say something about the culture, the community?
I think it says something about the generation.
Oh, the generation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and just the culture of the 90s and early 2000s was very different from what it is now.
Now meaning boys and
Gender-wise.
all genders are more comfortable mixing with each other, and is it
Maybe.
the same sort of stuff that we went through?
Yeah, I mean, there wasn't so much of that, the dichotomy between the two. When we were, younger, boys be boys, girls be girls, and, boys do certain things, girls do certain things. And, Sue touched on it, that, traditionally you'd think that, the Girl Scouts do the cookies and the baking and all that stuff. But, really, you could do anything, being able to integrate them a little bit more now, especially with our generation coming up and just having a different worldview and,
That everybody can do everything.
Everything can do everything, yeah.
Okay, so we have Cub Scouts through elementary, and then Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts are secondary and above. Middle school is secondary and above.
Yep,
Then you
and
decide
it's-
which way you want to go if you're going to continue on into Scouts.
If you want to stay in it's not Boy Scouts anymore, it's Scouting BSA.
Oh, Scouting.
Or Girl Scouts.
Or Girl
yeah.
Scouts. Okay. So, now we have an interesting which way to go on our discussion, because Sue and Justin, you've had a history in the Scouts. Now you're leaders, and you two are Scouts.
Yeah.
And so, on the subject of connecting and building community, how does that work? That sense of connection and community for you as leaders?
Yeah, well, for me, as an adult leader, it's really meeting other parents of kids that I wouldn't have normally met. They're in a different school district. We meet in a more rural area. Our school is more towards the city, and the other school is more rural. So my kids are really meeting different types of friends that they might not have known otherwise. And I'm meeting parents of these kids that I might not have known otherwise. So it's fostered friendships. Like some of these other parents I've known now for, how long have we done it? 4 years.
This is my 4th year. This is his 5th.
Yeah. Yep. And it's nice because as our kids get older, and we've been meeting, once or twice a month for years now. So it's definitely a nice sense of community and connection. Mom there, I knew since I was a kid. She was one of the neighborhood kids, and we reconnected as adults because of Scouts, So it's been really nice. They're both smaller communities, and now we have two that are coming together, two communities coming together. And it's definitely created a sense of belonging for me and connection with folks. So
Both with the younger and with the adults. So
Yeah.
because you're in Cub Scouts, do the parents come and stay?
Yes.
Yes. And so does a parent or a guardian or whoever comes with the Cub Scout, do they sit with them and work with them on their badge?
Yeah.
Okay.
at Sam's age,
At Sam's age, okay.
once you get to be a tan shirt. Go ahead,
Oh,
give it to
different
Lucas.
colored shirt. Okay, for you listeners, Sam has on a navy blue shirt, and Lucas has on a tan shirt, as do Sue and Justin. So, age change, at some point, you'd go to a different colored shirt. And then are the parents, if your mom and dad weren't leaders, are your friends' parents there too to help them? Or at that point, you start to be a little more independent?
We are a little bit more independent. Some of the parents help out, but mostly our leader of the den helps out with us.
Okay, leader of the den. Okay. And so then, what are your roles? If Sam's group has parents with them and Lucas's has kind of a leader, where do you two come in the community here?
Right. Well, Sue's the den leader, so she's been moving up every year with Sam.
Oh, you're the
So,
den leader
yeah,
for
so
Sam.
She
Okay.
leads that group.
I see. Okay.
And again, as they get up to Lucas's age, they're starting to transition into Scouts BSA, which I mentioned earlier that they're more scout led. So they're kind of making that transition.
More inner
where-
led.
Yeah, so they in Scouts BSA, just above Lucas's level, they'll start planning the meetings, the activities, that kind of thing. The parents are there, the leaders are there, just as an oversight, aspect of it. But that's what we're doing this year with Lucas in his group, is that we're transitioning his group to be able to kind of be more self-led, and be more responsible for their advancement and that kind of thing. So still
Interesting.
parent-led, but they're doing a little bit more independent stuff.
And where do you fit?
I'm the
Story.
Cub Master. So
You're
we have
a
our
Cub
dens.
Master.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, so we have our dens, our individual dens, and then we meet together as a pack. All of our dens together is called a pack. So my job is to lead pack meetings. We have one of those once a month. We'll do a pack meeting where everybody gets together, as a group, rather than meeting individually as your individual den. We come together and do an activity, or multiple activities. It's just something for the community to get together as a whole, and just learn some skills, or do some sort of group activity that helps us all again build that community.
So dens could be meeting in Melrose and Schaghticoke and Troy, but then once a month, all those different dens
All
come
come together
together.
at one-
So is there something, I don't know, written down about having the sense of community in your little den, but also the sense of then coming together in a bigger community and meeting together as a bigger community? Is that sort of part of what you're after?
Yeah, I mean the dens create an organization, and in Cub Scouts, that's the way you advance, is by your age. So each year when you get 1 year older, you will advance to the next, den in the same in the same order. But then we want to make sure that whole community gets together and
Of all these different
age
ages,
groups, yeah. To do these activities together and collaborate and bring that sense of community impact together, rather than having them all separate.
Yeah, it's really astounding, actually, in our culture today, because it's so easy to just hang with who's like ourselves, just hang with the same age, same sex maybe, and same things that we have in common. And you are consciously mixing and remixing all the time. And what do you see as the value of that?
Well, our kids are hanging out with different ages. He's getting guidance from older kids. Younger kids are making the older kids be silly again. It's all mixed up, and it's nice, and it's a little forced socialization that makes them a little uncomfortable, but then they realize they can deal with that and have a good time.
So let's ask Sam and Lucas how that is for you. How to be in your comfy cub, your comfy den, and then get mixed up at the end of the month in the pack, getting with people you might not even know. How does that feel for you? Okay or not okay? Sometimes both?
It feels good, and I get to bond with them,
Oh.
and I make friends with these people, and we play little games at the start, maybe they set up activities, and we usually play something like tag in the beginning of the pack meeting or den meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And we all get to kind of goof around.
And that fun goofing around just kind of helps you feel more comfy together.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How about for you, Sam? How does it feel when you go to the pack meeting and oh boy, you're number 2, and then here's another number 2, I don't know him, and here's another number 2, and I don't know him either or her. How does that feel for you?
It's the same with me. I like to get together with people I don't know and make new friends.
Mm-hmm. Oh, so for you, that's not scary. It's an opportunity to make new friends. What an interesting perspective to have. And for some people, it would be scary, and that would be okay.
Yes.
For you, it's an opportunity to make new friends.
Yeah.
Interesting. So how about we'll stay with you, Sam and Lucas, about your leaders of your group. Because what Mommy shared with me was that sometimes a leader could be a parent of one of the kids in your den. Sometimes a leader doesn't have any children in the den, and sometimes a leader doesn't even have children, and they can be a den leader. So these are opportunities for grown-ups to be with children because they want to be with children. How's that, to have sometimes a leader that you don't know?
I haven't experienced that yet.
Because it's always been your mommy?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
But in Lions, it wasn't really like there was only one den leader. It was your parents were your den leader
Okay.
because you weren't really used to the people around you.
We took turns. The parents
Yeah.
took turns.
The parents took turns.
When they were
Okay.
5, yeah.
Okay, yeah, little ones. Okay, but you started to talk about your den leader being a grandpa.
Mm-hmm.
Does he have a grandson or granddaughter in your den?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
And how's that to have a grandpa as your leader?
It's good because we get to play around at his house. Because usually if you have a grandson or something, they get cool things and have more space to play. So and we get to build stuff, cook stuff, and build huts, and I've had him for my whole entire experience with Cub Scouts.
Oh, okay. The leaders can move up with the group. Oh, okay.
And I've got to know him better, and I'm more comfortable around him now.
So do you feel connected to him?
Yeah, because we all learn the same things, and we're all on the same page. So, and I've moved up with mostly the same kids.
How do you feel towards your scout leader?
I feel
Comfortable?
comfortable.
Comfortable, okay. So, Sue and Justin, what would you like to add at this point for our listeners and our viewers that we might not have touched on?
I was just thinking, we talked about leaders not having to be parents, and definitely Cub Scouts welcomes, adults who might have grown children or not have had children but are interested in scouting. We welcome people to come and join us and help out. There's volunteer opportunities. Most scouts have to have, a treasurer to deal with the finances. And our treasurer, I've never even met because her kids have grown out of Scouts, but she still helps, Cub Scouts, but she still helps.
Interesting.
We have a committee chair who does the large majority of the work with calling places and organizing activities, and while we're kind of the faces to the kids, she does all of the organizing. So there's different roles that you could help with, and being leader or being just a volunteer leader, it's really for anybody. There's some training and just vetting to go through before you can just hop right in, but I think it's worth it, and once people get into it, it can be a really worthwhile community connection to make.
For sure. Yes, for sure. Justin.
Well, I just thought about, we have a gentleman that comes out, every year, just as a recruiter. His sons are grown and moved on, and they haven't been in scouting for years, and he's an older gentleman, but he comes back to recruit because he knows the value, that the scouting experience, gave to him and his children. So it just brings some joy to see, the new generation coming up and being able to be involved, and it's still being, a relatively healthy, strong, community that's still, existing. But for me personally, being a leader was not my, I guess my first choice. It was kind of fell into it because our old Cub master aged out with his son. So we had a void to fill, and I'm an Eagle Scout, and it just kind of felt like a natural thing for someone like me to fall into. But I tend to have a little bit of anxiety as far as planning activities and that kind of thing, because I want to make sure it's fun, fulfilling for the kids.
Of course.
So I do put a lot of pressure on myself, but I voice that to the kids that this is not comfortable for me as an adult, so this is out of my comfort zone, but you can do it, and it's not
great lesson.
It's not going to kill you, it'll make you stronger. And I do these activities and interact with the kids, and most of the kids are really great. You see some real gems in there, that are like, wow, these kids are really cool kids, that you have this opportunity to meet as an adult, and hopefully your kids are around them and interacting with them, and you get to see examples and be examples for the rest of the kids and adults around. So it's been really enjoyable, to come into it from a different perspective now as an adult.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, did you have anything on your list, Lucas, that you wanted to share that you didn't yet so far?
We sometimes help at the food pantry. And we clean up the beaches of Grafton. Okay. And we help out and we do service projects and stuff like that.
And how does that feel to do those things?
I feel good to help out with the community, not just the Cub Scout community, our whole community, and help the earth and other people that are in need of this.
Oh, thank you for doing that. And Sam, do you have anything else you want to share that you haven't shared so far?
Not just about Scouts,
Okay.
but everywhere I go, I feel community.
Really? Want to say a little more about that for our listeners and our viewers? Everywhere you go, you feel, will you say it again?
Community.
You feel community. So, what's your definition of community?
I think community is like your town.
Okay.
Everyone that, maybe your neighborhood.
Okay.
Could be your community.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone that you know could be your community.
Mm-hmm. So that's pretty big. So for you, when you wander around in the world, do you look around and say, this is my community? If you're at Grafton, cleaning up the beach, or at a food pantry, or your Cub, every school, all those places are community for you.
Yes.
Interesting. How does it feel to have so many communities?
It feels good to have everyone being community to me.
Oh, well, that is really a nice place to end, unless you have something else you want to add. Well, thank you so much. This was really, really interesting. So I'm just going to say a few more things to our listeners and viewers. So if you would like some additional online support, do check out Project Unlonely. It's a website. started by Dr. Jeremy Nobel. Lots of information there about connecting and community. They do some really awesome animated videos that really address sometimes our uncomfortableness with and feeling lonely and disconnected and how to move into connection and community. Cannot say enough about that website. And if you found this podcast helpful, please do subscribe and share the link with others so that together we can support each other with our stories to help everyone have a sense of connection. The content of this podcast is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical or mental health advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Please always seek the advice of a qualified healthcare professional or mental health provider for any questions you may have regarding a medical condition or mental health concern.